Welcome to Boys in the Hood TV. Today we're going to be discussing the life of a Grape Street Crip affiliate who was a star football player and would lose his life after being killed by the bounty hunter Bloods. Ashton Crosswell, aka Bulldozer, was born August 18, 1995. He would be raised in the Watts area, which is considered one of the most violent sections in all of California. Now, Ashton will be closely affiliated with the Grape Street Watts Crips, having many friends and family members that were part of this gang. Now, the Grape Street Crips had a deadly rivalry with the bounty hunter Bloods, where a lot of individuals had lost their lives, both male and female, to this war. So growing up, Ashton would lose a lot of friends from the Jordan Down projects. Now, Ashton's mother would make sure that he was locked into his school to keep him out of the streets. Now, one of his best friends growing up, also known as his godbrother, was Winston Rose, who was from Panamera, California. And as a kid, their mothers would have them together all the time. Both Winston and Ashton had a deep love for football as kids. Now, Ashton was also inspired by Jordan Down's projects on football superstar Brandon B.L. Bullard, who was also a Grape Street member who would lose his life in 2008 due to gang violence. Now, Ashton would play football for Salesian High School in 2011, where he would show off his talents. Now, in 2012, Ashton would be transferred to Morningside High School in Inglewood, where he would become a star varsity football player on the team. Now, every time Ashton had a game, his best friend Winston would make sure he would make that hour drive to come see him play. And anytime Winston had a game, Ashton would make sure he would make that same return hour drive to see Winston play. Now, while at school, Ashton would make good grades to make sure he stayed eligible to play football. Now, he had high hopes of possibly playing college ball with his friend Winston. And around this same time, he was already receiving Pac-12 team letters that were looking to recruit him.
He used to get like a lot of letters from like Pac-12 schools, and then he would put them on his wall. Bro, we're gonna play on the same team. Just imagine that if we was playing on the same team, what we would do.
Now, Ashton also liked to play basketball in his off-season in football, and so he would also join the basketball team. Now, although Ashton was best friends with Winston, he still had close ties to Grape Street. So from time to time, he would be seen in the Jordan Downs any chance that he got to kick it with his homies out there. Now, although Ashton was not an active gang member, being an affiliate to any gang is always dangerous because most rival gangs don't see the difference. And in 2012, Ashton would almost lose his life when he was shot at by rival gang members. But also that same year, Ashton would have his best football season yet to date at Morningside High School. But little did he know that death was right around the corner. On November 6, 2012, a fight would break out between bounty hunter Bloods and Grape Street members, which would result in the bounty hunter Blood being shot in the leg. Now, that same exact day, Ashton was scheduled to be at basketball practice, but he would choose to skip out and head down to the Jordan Downs to kick it with some of his Grape Street homies.
He was supposed to be at basketball practice, but he wasn't there. So, why he wasn't at basketball practice one day, man?
At around 7 p.m., Ashton was out on Anzac and 103rd in Grape Street's hood. As he was out talking with a few of his homies from Grape, a car would drive by full of bounty hunter Bloods. Now, inside that car was a man named Williams, Snell, and the driver named Hawkins. Now, Hawkins, the driver, would pull the car on a nearby street. Both Williams and Snell, dressed in all black with hoodies, would hop out the car, armed with handguns. As the Grape Street Crips stood on the corner drinking and talking, that's when both bounty hunter Bloods would walk up to him. And Williams would yell out, "Hey, where y'all from?" And immediately, he pulled out his gun and opened fire. He would let off multiple rounds as the crowd began to scatter. Snell attempted to pull out his gun, but was unable to. Eventually, both Williams and Snell would hop back into the car and they would flee the scene. Now, when all the smoke cleared, Ashton had been struck in the buttocks, but the bullet had traveled through his body, exiting his torso, then re-entering his right arm. 911 would immediately arrive on scene, and shortly after, EMTs would rush Ashton to the hospital.
And we got a call, and I think it was his grandmother, and she told me that Ashton got shot. We got in the car and we went to where he was. We got there, other family members were there. I remember we were all crying.
We rushed straight to the hospital, and me talking to him and telling him, like, bro, stay strong. Like you have to stay strong for me, bro.
Sadly, 8 days later, Ashton Crosswell aka Bulldozer, would die from suffering from major blood loss. Now, once police began their investigation, they knew that it was gang-related and that the likelihood of somebody from bounty hunters was definitely responsible. So they immediately arrested a bounty hunter blood named Damon. Now, while Damon was in custody, he would be placed in a cell with an informant. And he would have a conversation where he would tell that informant that although he wasn't the shooter, another bounty hunter blood by the name of Marlon Williams was a shooter. Now, the detective would take this information and they would go arrest Marlon Williams for suspicion of murder. Once arrested, they would put Williams in a cell with that same exact informant, and Williams would admit that he was the shooter and that Snell and Hawkins were both with him. Now, this would lead to the arrest of both Snell and Hawkins eventually. Now, also all in custody, Snell would be placed in a cell with an informant, and he would tell this informant that he was worried that he was about to go down for a murder, although he never pulled the trigger. But he would, in fact, tell that informant that he got scared and did fire his gun, and would go on to state that he wasn't worried about them finding a weapon because they had already got rid of it. Now, during the trial, Marlon Williams would testify that the night of the shooting, he was with his girlfriend the entire night. And in return, his girlfriend would take the stand and testify that she had been with Mr. Williams the entire night also. Now, the problem with this was that Williams had already told detectives that he was at home by himself. So this would lead to the prosecution playing in jail cell phone recordings of both Williams and Snell, both admitted to being at the shooting at the time of the murder. And by the end of the trial, all three men would be found guilty of murder. Marlon Williams will be found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to 15 years to life for the murder, plus 25 for the firearm enhancement. Now, Snell, who was a juvenile offender at the time, will be found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to 15 years to life in prison, plus an indeterminate term of 25 years to life in prison for a firearm enhancement. Lastly, Cordell Hawkins will be found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to 50 years to life in prison. Now, Ashton's death will break his best friend's heart, Winston Rose.
I honestly wanted to give up. I honestly didn't want to be here. On my left wrist, I would write LLAC4, long live Ashton Croswell. And that number 4 was his last number he wore in football.
Could you describe what Ashton was like when he was playing sports?
He was very forceful. He goes all out.
Imagine yourselves as USC Trojans playing together.
USC Trojan, yeah. This is both of our dream, but he was more passionate. He really loved the game.
That's my brother. That's my brother. That's what he would say. That's what Ashton would say. He would be right there saying that.
Ashton. Because I know my boy gonna be right there with me.